Hola chicos, en este video vamos a hablar del vocabulario. So in this chapter, chapter 4 is all about food. There was a decision made to add vocabulary into this chapter. So it's going to come from capítulo 9. So I'm going to go over the vocab so that you can make sure you're clear on all the meanings. It will be in a different order than the vocab you have on your list. So you'll just have to kind of pay attention and contextualize where are we talking about, okay? Here we go. So as you know, you can access the vocabulary from eStudio. You go in, you click on the ebook, right? You have the chapters over here. So I've gone to chapter 9, vocab 1, and vocab 2, okay? So vocab 1 is all about shopping. So here we have un centro comercial. Now our cognate ninjas would tell us that this is a commercial center or a mall, okay? So here we have el escaparate. El escaparate can mean a lot of different things depending on where you are at, but a lot of times it's like kind of like the display case. That's the escaparate, okay? You'll notice this comment on blue jeans. So remember we talk about in every country they have a different word for food or for clothing or for even like household stuff, the rooms in a house. And that's true. So jeans, some countries just call them un blue jean or los jeans. Some countries call them un pantalón vaquero. Vaquero is a cowboy, so literally cowboy pants, because cowboys wear jeans, right? Los majones, if you're in Puerto Rico, okay, could be different. For a jacket, depending on what kind of jacket you have la chaqueta, which is easiest to remember, un saco, or una americana, if it's like a sports jacket. So lots of options. You're going to want to know what people use where you go. So before you hop on that plane to Ecuador, maybe Google, how do you say jacket in Ecuador, okay? So let's look at what are some of the vocab we have for this unit. So we have muchas tiendas. We know tienda is from last chapter. It means a store en un centro comercial. Mucha gente. Gente was on your list for this chapter. Gente is people. Gente is tricky because it's always singular. So how can a singular thing refer to a lot of people? But that's just the way it is, okay? Va de compras. This comes from the phrase ir de compras. Ir de compras means to go of purchases. But we wouldn't say that. In English, we would say to go shopping, okay? So maybe on Saturday, you vas de compras con tu amigo. Or usually on Domingo, voy de compras a Winco. I always go to Winco on Sundays. It's just my routine, okay? So that could be your ir de compras. That could be any type of shopping, all right? So this chapter we're going to look at, not only we're going to look at market food, we're also going to look at clothing. So we have la ropa. We learned a little bit of it when we looked at uniforms, but we're going to learn a little bit more. So we know un pantalón largo, okay? Now, it says un pantalón instead of los pantalones. And this, again, a lot of countries will refer to the pantalón in the singular. When we know in English, it's pants, right? It's plural. But it doesn't matter because we're not speaking English. So we need to get used to seeing un pantalón as a singular thing, right? You have one shirt and you have one pant, okay? So here we have un pantalón largo. We have una chaqueta, which I just talked about. We have una camisa, which I believe we learned camisa with our uniform, de manga corta. So if you look this up, a camisa de manga corta is a short-sleeved shirt, whereas camisa de manga larga would be the opposite, right? She has un blue jean and un par de tenis. Now, yeah, it looks like tennis, but it's because we call these tennis shoes. So tenis, and they use that a lot in Mexico, tenis are sneakers or tennis shoes, athletic shoes usually. Un vestido is a whole dress. Un par de zapatos. So we have par mentioned in both of these, so we can contextualize and use our cognate skills that means pair. So here we have like regular shoes, whereas here we have tennis shoes. Okay, so if you want to talk about shoes in general, you would say zapatos. If you want to talk about athletic shoes, you could say tenis or zapatillas. Okay? And if you want to use that one later, you can ask me how to spell it. So when you go shopping, you have to know your size. If it is clothing, you're going to say la talla. With shoe size, you're going to use el número because it's not small, medium, large in your shoes. You are a number, right? Also keep in mind, you'll notice on the box it says 40. Who has size 40 feet? Well, people in the rest of the world measure their feet that way. So you'll notice that if you go to Europe or South America, they use a different way to measure your feet. So if you want to go shopping in those places, you have to know your shoe size. If any one of you guys wears Birkenstocks, for example, you might notice that they have a different shoe size, okay? Or your parents wear Birks. You'll notice that, all right? So you just have to get used to the way they measure it. Here we have no te queda bien. Quedar means to stay. So quedar bien means to stay well. Gibberish in English, right? In Spanish, it means to fit. So he's saying, that chaqueta no te queda bien. And he's like, yeah, es verdad, it's true. Es muy grande, ¿no? Necesito una talla, a smaller size, más pequeña. So, you also notice here you have the tallas are chico, mediano, y grande, right? Small, medium, large. But what I've experienced also is that a lot of countries, because of the way they import clothing, the tags are in English. So you don't ask for a small, but you will ask for an S, M, o L, or XL, okay? So I've seen that too, not just chico, grande, mediana. Use some of that borrowed words we've talked about. Over here, we have un par de zapatos. So this is a typical conversation that might happen if you were shoe shopping. And they don't say what size do you wear. They're going to ask how much do you calzar. And calzar is basically to be big. So how big is your foot? So she's saying, ¿qué número calza usted? So what number do you calza? And calzar can be kind of like to reach. So she's saying, oh, I reach 37. My foot is size 37. And so she brings her the shoe. We already know la empleada, no? And then, of course, if we're shopping, we need to be able to talk about prices. That's the most important thing, and especially when we get to the market. So here we have el precio. All right. We have these ones that cost 500 pesos. Son caras. Cara is expensive. These ones cuestan poco. Son baratas. Baratas is el contrario de cara. Okay. We've seen cuesta from our previous chapter, so we know that means to cost. All right. Here we have a saldo o liquidación. So you might have heard of a liquidation in English. This is a sale. Every country has a million ways to say sale. So that's another one of those you'll want to find out. We know bajar is to download or to bring down. So if they rebajan los precios, it means they really bring down the prices. Te sale más barato means, well, we know barato is cheap or inexpensive, and más would be more inexpensive. So te sale is kind of like, for you, it's cheaper. So like if you're buying something, it's cheaper for you to buy it on sale. Te cuesta menos, it costs you less. Okay, so that's kind of our clothing. Let's go real quickly to the mercado. Mercado is super important to understand. In order to go to any Spanish-speaking country, especially if you're in Latin America, they usually function on mercados. Food's way better than the supermercado, okay? So here we have un puesto, a spot, un tenderete. So that would be like one of the booths, okay, or one of the areas in the mercado. So we know that they van de compras, they're shopping. They van de un puesto al otro. Okay. Los vendedores. She is a vendedora. A man is a vendedor. The plural is vendedores. Okay. So they have their productos. Here we have what you might buy. Now, what's awesome about buying in the mercado is you have so many more vegetables that are available to you depending on the season. So we have los guisantes, which would be like peas. Remember, there's no guisantes, and it's not going to be gui because it doesn't have those goofy little dots, okay? El maíz. So if you've ever been to a corn maze, now you understand why it's called a maze. Okay, so this is maíz. In some countries, they also call it choclo. Here we have las cebollas. Here we have los pimientos, peppers. Las zanahorias. You're going to want to say zanahoria so bad, but you're not going to because you know that Z sounds like an S, right? Las judías verdes. Las judías verdes. And don't forget, you can log in eStudio and click on all these. These are going to be your green beans, okay? So peas over here, green beans over here. Here you'll notice you'll want to read that so you can have different words from maíz. You can have elote, you can have el choclo, and then judías verdes also has multiple words. Chauchos, porotos, in some places they call them frijoles because they are beans, right? So they might just be more specific. So here we have another puesto. It's very common to see these kinds of things on the street. So they're selling fruta. So we have la naranja, la piña, right? Piña colada, las manzanas, los plátanos. Plátanos was that word we discussed. There's a lot of versions. Plátano, banano, banana, depending on the country you're in. Las uvas. And those are things you would buy at a mercado. So then we go to a supermercado, and that's where you're going to buy congelados, frozen products. So here we have un paquete de vegetales congelados. We have un carrito lleno de compras. So we know carro is like car, but we can also use this for like cart. So un carrito. If you guys remember when we went shopping online, you had to fill your carrito. So like if you're online shopping, you're filling your shopping cart. We have ocho tajadas de jamón. So this is jamón, and a tajada is a slice. Un frasco. Un frasco is the jar, okay? Un bote, I've never heard that a lot, but I have heard una lata de atún. So that's atún, and we have the case is una lata. Here we have una botella de agua mineral. Don't forget to order sin gas, right? Or you'll be sorry. Here we have some things you might ask. ¿A cuánto están los tomates? How much are the tomatoes? Están a 50 el kilo. So 50 the kilo, or 50 per kilo. And the 50, of course, would be referring to whatever the currency is in the place that you're at. And so if they want something more, algo más, and then you would obviously respond in a polite way. So you can go ahead and read that on your own. Here, this is really important to know because you're going to want to buy souvenirs, okay? So you're going to go to a mercado indígena, indigenous, or mercado de artesanía, all right? So an artisan market. So you might see tejidos. Tejidos is anything that's knitted, okay? Knitted or loomed, or depending on the country and the traditions they have with that. Artesanía is any kind of craft. So it could be something that's painted, something that's sculpted, whatever. It could be something that's carved as well. Cerámicas are very popular, so ceramics or anything that's made out of clay. Sandalias, so you might buy some sandals, leather sandals. In some countries, leather's really cheap, so that's a really common thing to buy. Okay. Here we have, ella no paga el precio. Quiere pagar menos. She wants to pay less. We haven't seen quiere. Don't worry about that. So, en el mercado, todos regatean. Right here, they are regatean. That is when you negotiate the price of the product. It's important to realize when you travel that some prices are fixed and some prices are not fixed. So, a lot of times, especially here, especially if you're a tourist and especially if you're blonde with a backpack on, they're going to charge you a different price. And if you don't think that's fair, and you need to know what's fair, you need to educate yourself. If you don't think that's fair, you need to argue that price with them. And every country has a different way to do that politely. It's often expected that you are going to come back with a counteroffer. Okay? So that's just a little bit. That should help you fill out your vocab sheet. And we'll see you next time, okay? Ciao!